Right, welcome everybody to the June 10th, 2025 public hearing on cannabis ordinance. And we will now open the public hearing and we will review the changes that we had made in it and go over those changes and then open it up for public comment. And later on in our agenda, in our regular county board agenda, there is a line item to potentially approve this ordinance as it is presented today. But I'll turn it over to Adam, and Adam's got the crew here for the Cannabis Committee. And at our last public hearing, we had some concerns, and Adam and the committee addressed those concerns, and now this is a product of those concerns. And we'll just see how it goes here today, and just turn it over to Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. Most of it is the committee here today, so. As Mr. Chair talked about, this is our second public hearing on the county's cannabis ordinance. During our last public hearing, we took public comment. There was probably three main areas of concern. One was around the number of retail cannabis shops allowed. One was around zoning, the different types of licenses. And the third was around public use of cannabis. And so the board referred it back to the Cannabis Committee, and the Cannabis Committee had met, as did the Planning and Zoning Committee, to review those concerns. And they made a recommendation to the board at a committee of the whole meeting, and the board was wanting to move forward with the second public hearing, so we're here today. There are handouts of the draft ordinance out there if you don't have one, but I'm just going to walk through the changes that were made from the previous draft ordinance based on those concerns. So if you have your handout, we will move to page 4. Number 14, under the definitions, public place. The original model ordinance defined public place as a public park or trail, public street or sidewalk, any enclosed indoor area used by general public, including but not limited to restaurants, bars, and other food or liquor establishments, hospitals, nursing homes, auditoriums, arenas, gyms, meeting rooms, common areas, and rental apartment buildings, and other places of public accommodation. This relates to the public use that we'll get to later, but we went back to statute and we changed the definition per statute. So what was struck from the definition was the first phrase, a public park or trail, public street or sidewalk, was taken out. So that definition now reads, any enclosed indoor area used by general public, including but not limited to restaurants, bars, any other food or liquor establishment, hospitals, nursing homes, auditoriums, arenas, gyms, meeting rooms, common areas of rental apartment buildings, and other places of public accommodation. So that's the first change. And we'll get into the reasoning for that at the end of the ordinance. The next change is on page 8, under 2.6 at the top of the page. We had a lot of discussion around state statute requires the county to allow one cannabis retail establishment per population of 12,500. And we had originally written it to allow for that, and that the board would consider any additional requests beyond that, but wasn't obligated to register any other retail establishments. I think there was some concern around monopoly, pricing, competition, quality, if there's only one allowed in the county. And so the committee is moving forward with this recommendation as written in the draft. So it will read as Koochiching County will allow 2 active cannabis retail business registrations, or 1 for every 12,500 residents, whichever is more. Koochiching County shall not be required to register additional state licensed cannabis retail businesses, but may review additional applications for registration on a case-by-case basis. So basically what that means is our current population is 11,000, around 11,500. So we're obligated per statute to allow one. This ordinance, if adopted, will allow up to two. And the or is if for some reason the population grows to, 30,000 people, that will allow us to meet the state statute to allow 1 per 12.5, which would, in that case, would be 3. If we have 2 retail registration businesses, people can still apply for a third, and the county board would have discretion to review that application and determine that they would not be obligated to allow that third registration. So that was the change there. On the same page, it starts on 3.2, zoning and land use. The first change there is under 3.2.5, cannabis retail. So the original ordinance allowed cannabis retail businesses to be zoned in a commercial district and a C2 commercial district with a conditional or interim use permit. What was added was the AF1 agricultural forestry district under a conditional or interim use permit. So that was one change. And then at the bottom of page 9, 3.2.7, and at the top of page 10, the AF1 agricultural forestry district was added under cannabis delivery as a conditional or interim use permit. I think there was some concern that if someone was wanting to grow or manufacture in an agricultural district, they would have to, if they wanted to sell in that same, on a similar property, they would have to have different zoning to accomplish that. These changes would allow somebody to cultivate in an AF1, manufacture in an AF1, have retail in an AF1 with a conditional or interim use permit, and deliver out of an AF1 with a conditional or interim use permit. So I know we talked about there are, I think, 11 or 13 different types of licenses. A couple of them are bundled licenses where you can do a micro or meso business. That kind of bundles agricultural, manufacturing, and retail into the same license. This will not allow that person to do all that on one zoning property. So that was another change. And then the last change has to do with public use, and that's on page 11 under section 7. And just a background on this, the state statutes go into great detail on where you can possess and where you can use cannabis or low potency hemp. And those state statutes govern the county and all cities with that. And so we felt it was important to still address public use and summarize that. But what we have here does not exceed the state statute of where people can use and have cannabis or low potency hemp in our county. So it doesn't go above and beyond what the state has, but it summarizes what we feel is important. So I'll just read it here. Use in public places. An individual may not use cannabis flower, cannabis products, artificially derived cannabinoids, or hemp-derived consumer products in a manner that involves the inhalation of smoke, aerosol, or vapor in a public place, or a public place of accommodation, or at any location where smoking is prohibited under section 144.414, or in any location where the smoke, aerosol, or vapor would be inhaled by a minor. So when we talk about a public place or a public place of accommodation, you have to go back to the definitions page to really understand what are the definitions of a public place or a public place of accommodation. So when we change that definition to eliminate parks and trails and things like that, that mirrors the state statute definition of a public place. So that's the major change here. And that pretty much wraps up the changes made to the draft cannabis ordinance. I also want to make sure people understand that cities have the ability to delegate authority to the county. Currently, the following cities have delegated authority: the city of Rainier, the city of Northome, the city of Little Fork, and the city of Big Falls. So currently, with those delegations, this ordinance, if and when adopted, would cover all the unorganized area of the county plus these cities that have delegated. So the only cities that haven't delegated in the county are the city of International Falls and the city of Mizpah at this point. So that's what this ordinance would cover. Questions from the board or comment?
All right, if there's no questions, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody, we'll start in the room here. Is there anybody in person that has public comment? Anybody? All right.
I can unmute online here.
We'll go to online here. Just take a second.
So if anybody online, they have to unmute themselves if they want to make public comment.
Great. Anybody online have public comment? All right. Hearing none. That concludes the public hearing on cannabis ordinance, and this will be up for consideration at our regular board meeting. Thank you all for being here. Well, welcome everybody to the Koochiching County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Would you please help me open with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. Am I projecting okay? Can people in the gallery hear? Okay, excellent. First order of business under county business is to approve the proposed agenda with additions and/or deletions. We have neither today, so the agenda would be considered as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is to approve the minutes from the May 27th, 2025 regular meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is financial business. The chair would accept the motion on items A, B, C, and D, which are item A is approved May summarized payment listing, B, approved May payroll and ACH vendor payments, C, approved courthouse claims, and D, approved highway claims.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any discussion on the payments and claims? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is to approve a warrant void. I think there's just one today. One for one vendor in the amount of $769.99 due to wrong, let's see here. Lost warrant, affidavit's on file, so it was just lost. So $769.99 is the warrant void.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Any discussion on the void? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is human resource. We have a notice of hire.
Yeah, Brian's off today. So just a notice of hire, Allison Tashuk was hired as an accounting tech 2 in environmental services to replace Brenda Promisberger, who is retiring. And Allison is starting on 6/11 to provide some orientation before Brenda goes. I think her last date is July 11th.
Welcome to Allison. And that was an external hire, correct?
External.
Okay, thank you. All right, as a notice, no formal action. Next up is consider adopting the Koochiching County Cannabis Ordinance. We had a public hearing earlier. We heard no public comment. There were a few minor changes that we reviewed. Thank you to the Cannabis Committee and administration for looking into that and making those changes and listening to the public. And hopefully there's no public comment, and obviously things can be tweaked and changed as needed, and we can move forward from there. So if everyone's comfortable with that, Chair would accept a motion to adopt the Koochiching County Cannabis Ordinance.
I'd make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
I also am requesting that the board, in addition to the ordinance, approve the registration application and the fee schedule. So in your packet, the application is pretty basic, just what they fill out when they're applying for registration. And then the fee schedule follows state statute as well. That's the last page in this packet, or this RBA. And then we'll have all the tools and resources to administer registrations if all that's approved.
All right, so with that motion made by Commissioner Roach, there would be the application process and the fee schedule included.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, thank you. And would that be appropriate for Commissioner McIntyre as well?
Yes.
All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Next up is consider approval of elected official wage and benefits package. And in the packet, this is an annual presentation, but we're going with a 3-year term, you might say, but this will be presented annually, Adam?
For the elected officials, yes. So we are wrapping up our labor negotiations, and so we have other groups that, non-union hourly elected officials, non-union salary, that, are waiting for those results as well. So we want to get these moved. These will be retroed back to 1/1/25. The elected officials, for the record, are the sheriff, the recorder, and the auditor treasurer. County attorney was asked to meet with the personnel committee to review his salary, so we won't approve his this time. We'll approve the others. So that for elected officials, it'd be a 3.5% COLA for 2025. We're letting them know that we're offering a 3% for 26 and a 3% for 27, but we'll notify them at those times as well, because they have an opportunity to review and speak to the personnel committee as well.
All right, so recommendation is to approve the following elected officials' wage and benefits package for the 2025 through 2027 as recommended by the County Personnel Committee. And further, to set their 2025 salaries as follows: sheriff at 114,706, auditor treasurer at 99,008, and recorder at 84,752. And as Adam mentioned, county attorneys will be forwarded to the personnel committee at this time. Wishes of the board?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
Second. Give it to Erickson.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries. Item 7 is to approve non-union salaried employees' wage and benefit proposal.
So same thing, just asking for approval to approve the wage and benefits package for the non-union salaried group for 25, 26, and 27. Again, it's the same economic package that we've negotiated with the other groups. 3.5% COLA at 25, 3% 26, 3% 27, and then the longevity pay of 3% after they have 10 years of service and are at step 9, and then 3% at 15 years as long as they're at step 9 on the scale. And then the benefit package is really the same as it's been, but just notifying them that it hasn't changed. So. There's a slight change because employees follow their respective contracts. We have a slightly different longevity package for corrections. Instead of the 3% at 10 and 15 years, they get 2% at 5, 2% at 10, and 2% at 15. So with Carrie being salaried over that group, we will apply that longevity to her to stay consistent with following her respective contracts. We did that differently just because there's not a lot of longevity in corrections, not just here but across the state. So we wanted to provide an opportunity for people to get it and hopefully help retain people. You know, if they see that they can get a little bit more at 5 years, and they get a little bit more at 5 years, that maybe they'll stick around a little longer, and it's a win-win for employees and the county. So that's the only difference for Carrie in her position in this RDA.
All right, the wishes of the board.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries. And next up, item 8 is approve non-union hourly employees' wage and benefit proposal.
Yep, exactly the same as salary. 3.5% COLA in 25, 3% 26, 3% 27. Longevity is 3% at 10 years as long as they're at step 9, and at 15 years as long as they're at step 9. And just so we've had some discussion, AFSCME is looking to petition for the public health nurses and the public health educators to join AFSCME. We've had a few meetings on that. The recognition clause, as I've interpreted it, and as the labor attorney has interpreted it, would include them if they wanted to join, and it sounds like they're interested in joining. So they're on this list right now because they're currently non-union hourly, but we're still working through that process on how they fold into the contract. So I have more information to come, but we're kind of waiting for them to get back to us on their proposal of how they fold into the contract for that. So
Right, wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries. Our next item is the University of Minnesota Extension presentation, and we will hold that item until Mrs. Jody arrives here. She's en route and experiencing some construction delays, so we will roll back to that. So we will move on to Auditor Treasurer's business to consider approval of election appointments.
I did update the RBA. I'm now sure that there will be an election in November as well for Spoon Fork School District. So we will also have to administer the UCAVA ballots for them. So I just added both elections for this one RBA, so we don't have to do it again in September. So yeah, that's all we have to do for the upcoming 2 elections is train them in absentee administration. They are responsible for all of their own absentees and for running the entire election, with the exception of processing the overseas ballots. So I just need to approve the county ballot board for processing those.
So the cities is an August election and the
School is November. But we'll use the same ballot board for both elections.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, thank you. With that addition of School District 362 for the election of a vacant board seat, and that will be on November 4th, 2025. The appointments will be the same people. That will cover the August 12th and the November 4th elections. Is that correct?
Correct.
Chair would accept a motion accepting the appointments of the following people: Joe Nelson, Sandra Thompson, Mary Jean Becker, Emily Amrud, and Courtney Knudsen.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Yeah, she skipped. Okay, we will now jump back to item 9, which is University of Minnesota Extension presentation. And come on up, please. We'll get you another chair. Good morning.
Sorry about that delay. I sat at that stoplight, Dale. Long time. Which is nice, the road construction. So I had a few slides, if that would be okay. And Carrie, can you share it?
Need access. I'm not sure who the host is.
He's getting them.
Please, thank you, Adam. And while we're working on that, I just wanted to do a really short intro. It's really great to see all of you. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person this morning. My name is Carrie Cabot. I'm the Northeast Regional Director with Extension. And I just wanted to open it up and again, appreciate your support and this work with our partnership there in Koochiching County, where we have a 4-H youth development educator, as well as last year you invested in a community solutions committee work to do a community needs assessment. And Jody has been present at the board meetings in the past. Last year gave kind of a mid-report, and I've asked her to come back, and actually this County Extension Committee there in Koochiching County has suggested it would be a good idea to come back and do a final report on the results of that community needs assessment survey, and then maybe also to invite conversation, if you're willing, on kind of what the next steps are, how you might use the data moving forward and with decisions, because just to stress, and Jody I'm sure will do this as well, but it is really important as the work that you're doing, really to get the input and community voice into your work and what happens there. And so I think this is a real opportunity to utilize and review the data that came through the community voice in what you decide to do moving forward with your decisions. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to Jody.
Okay, so thank you for the invite via Carrie for that. It's been a year, actually, more than a year now. and Doug is with me. He's the chair of the extension. You're still the chair, correct?
Unfortunately, yes.
The chair of the extension committee. So, and anyway, my colleague John Bennett works out of the Colquay, Duluth area, and so I'm a little closer. So I thought it would be a nice drive over this morning, so it was. But some of the things that I just wanted to just recap and share, you got an abbreviated report, right?
In the packet here.
Yeah, okay. And it just with some of the basic information in there. The full report, it's a lot longer for you to be able to take a look at. But Carrie, if you would just advance and kind of, I'm going to go through these first, just they're more of a visual and a reminder. This is some of the stuff from the final report, is why this was done in the first place and why Extension was involved. Extension wanting to do something, and it decided how can we take our resources and bring to bear here in the county. And so what we recommended was this Delphi study, which was 4 rounds of questions where you gather lots of input and then it's a process to narrow it down. And so Carrie, if you want to keep moving, what it was, in the Extension Committee created a County Solutions Committee, and the names of those people are listed in that report. A number of folks who were, kind of the movers and shakers in the county who were involved in that, and they helped us identify the potential survey participants. They also, Carrie, if you want to just keep moving, they also, and when we did that, and in the report, you'll see that we tried to mirror as best we could some of those indicators from the demographics, so that we heard from a range of people based on household income and all those pieces, and that's in the report for you to take a look at. The committee reviewed all of the data after each round and made sure that when we sent out the next survey, that it was contexted for the county. I don't live here, and so there were abbreviations and things in there, like what are the AB apartments, and various things we wanted to make sure were in there. And so those were the first 2 rounds. The first one was August, the next one September, and we the first one they gave ideas, second one they rated them, third one looked at how do you rank these, how would we put them in order, and then we looked at success factors and barriers to moving initiatives forward. And all of those are attachments into that full big report, and they're also available online. So you can pull out individual pieces of those. And then the last one was to identify then, who would be key partners to be involved in initiatives that were described from that round 3. So that's enough on that, Carrie. And then the Solutions Committee did, convene conversations to develop, talk about options for taking action across the county. I do believe that, Extension Committee wanted to look then for ways that Extension resources might, come into bear, and how to make those connections into that space. And the next slide, or near the end there, one more back one time, Carrie. Just that notion of, at the end when I wrapped things up and we had the report, I did share with the Solutions Committee a number of resources that would help. Names of people who would be volunteered or would be interested if asked, or just all of the people who took part in the survey, if you wanted to reconnect with them, all of that, the Solutions Committee and the Extension Committee received that. So I'll stop there, and I have a few insights that I will share about, my perspective on moving forward. That's only my perspective, but if you have questions at all before I do that, or concerns, or I don't know, wonderments.
One of the things that we've done through their work is put this final report online. So there's a website, in essence, that people can go to see what we've done. And part of what we're working on is how do we integrate that with the extension page on the county's website, and how do we make that usable so people can see, because there's an awful lot of data in there. And then I'll get out of your way.
No, and then, and I believe it was at the last Extension Committee meeting, Lois Lewis offered to put her contact information on that website, so if people had questions, they would go somewhere and someone would be tracking and could follow up if people did have questions.
Right.
I know some of this data could be used to apply for grants, you know, for different groups or organizations, but also there were ideas there on things that might happen.
When people ranked, did you see, was it pretty much the same across the county, or different parts of the county rank things higher than other parts of the county?
I would say generally it was similar.
Okay.
I was a little surprised at things that didn't get ranked at the top when I looked at, or some of the things that didn't get lifted up that I might have thought would be lifted up more. They also, and I have a slide on here, things that they also valued, that they want to, you know, assure that this is what we value about living here. And I do have a slide that talks about that. I think that the sample size, because of some of the communities were smaller, maybe they would have been ranked differently had there been more people in those samples from around the county. We tried to reach out to get, you know, I know there were folks from North Home and, you know, various little communities around. In Birchdale, I know there were folks there. I don't know if I have that data access to it, but it wasn't like major differences in what they were seeing.
Any questions? Well, I think this is one of the steps that our board was looking to make, looking ahead a little bit. I said, you know, cumulatively we came to an agreement that, you know, this was worth pursuing, and, you know, and I sure hate to see it stop now with some of the thoughts and ideas, and having some champions of some of this and some help, honestly. So and kind of narrow in and zoom in on, you know, you can have 100 things to look at, I think, and I think you focus in on 2 or 3 of those big things that we really need to do. You know, I think that's kind of what the goal was, and I think we found that. Now I think we got to get to the next level.
And you were sitting in on a lot of those conversations, and so the insights that and of course we all have. So because of my work, some of the pieces that I do, I have 3 insights that when I look at this and when I think about the interactions I've had with the county. One of them relates to the Survey 4 talked about the effort and impact around things. And we used the effort impact matrix to look at that. And a lot of those projects, you know, so this is a way of rating things like, don't spend your time here, these are time wasters. You know, these fill-in projects can be a nice thing to do. You want to go for the quick wins, things that are high impact and easy to do. Well, in this case, if Carrie would advance the slide, in this case, this was in the report, it's really small, but when you look at the quadrants, most of those items that were identified were what I would fit into that category of wicked problems. And that's not a surprise to you, or even, you know, to anyone who would look at this. There are a few things that fell into, in the 2 larger grids up there, that did fall into the easy wins category, things that could be done, that some of those not even taking a lot of resources or time, but just encouragement. And to be able to look at those things. When it comes to all those others that are in that other category in the upper left, they're, you know, high impact and high effort to be able to do that. So Carrie, if you would move it through the wicked problems, and I one of the online courses that I teach is about economic development and solving wicked problems. And it's not about economic development strategies, it's about leadership and how people lead and how you address those kinds of issues. And so people get into those traditional problem-solving approaches, they don't work anymore. And that's why they're there. That's why they showed up. They're wicked problems, and every time you fix a little piece here, something else pops up over here. It's a systems approach, and it's so interconnected. And so really, when you're looking at dealing with wicked problems, it's really about understanding it from multiple perspectives, doing some experimenting and giving yourself permission to fail and try figure out what you learned from that and try the next thing based on that feedback. And there's one more slide on this one, Carrie, yeah. But it really requires a shift in mindset. So in this course that we're teaching, it's about how do we move from a legacy mindset to a transformation mindset, which is about transforming how we think about things, learn, adapt, collaborate, experiment, continually making progress. Because if we always wait till we have the right answer, we're never going to have it. And that's why there's so many wicked problems that show up. And it takes a lot of risk. My second insight that I would share is a lot of my work in our Department of Community Development focuses around the Community Capitals Framework. And I don't know if you've seen or are familiar with this at all. But with this model, there are 3 capitals that are across the bottom. That's cultural capital. That's how things are in the county, what people value, how they live their lives, what's important to them, all of those things. Human capital are the people and how they get put to work, whether it's paid, volunteer, all of those pieces, and then social capital, and that's the connections. Those 3 capitals are what we say are the important ones for spiraling up initiatives to build assets in other areas. Is you have to pay attention to the culture where you are. You have to, use the human resources that you have and their connections in order to do a sort of a spiraling up effect. And starting small leads to wins, leads to the next piece. I'm working on a program right now with Blandon Foundation where they brought small communities together. And this program has been so empowering for those small community leaders from communities of 200 up to maybe 1,000. And we've been doing learning groups around cultural, human, and social capital. And they're now starting to see, if we do this, we can, spiral it to that next level and make a difference and improve natural capital or improve build capital or financial. And so it's been fun to watch that progression. It's a variation on a leadership program where they're coming together across communities and building connections and the energy and the synergy from multiple communities. Because when you're a community of 500, you're wearing a lot of hats, spinning a lot of plates, and you're tired, and you don't know where to turn. And so they were being inspired to think about what they can do. We took them just through a strategic doing process. Strategic doing is let's do, evaluate, plan, do, more of a, like this kind of a wave versus plan. I've led strategic planning initiatives. You do a lot of planning and then you pop your head up and you start doing. Those processes aren't as effective as let's try something. It worked, great. What do we learn from it? Well, how do we do the next thing? And that's what that program is working on right now. And then the third insight that I would share is really about, paying attention. Oh, sorry, I could go back to that one, Carrie. Pay attention to what people value. And in the surveys, people said they value people and connections, civic pride, that working together, which kind of fits people and connections, those items. And so sometimes it's how do we build on those things to encourage that growth from that cultural, social, and human capital on the bottom of that. And when you fix something that works, when you find something that works, don't fix it. Just do more of the same thing, is that piece. The last thing that I look at when I work in communities, when I get invited to go work in a community, is I look at these 6 community readiness indicators. And these dimensions are really important to pay attention to, because if you don't have leadership energy in a cooperative, collaborative climate, things are just going to sit. That leads to civic engagement, and all of those pieces and that entrepreneurial attitude fits with the tackling wicked problems as well. And the capacity to be mindful. You need to be strategic in how you move through things, but not that it holds you back, but that it moves you forward with those ideas. And there have been times when I've done a leadership, in fact, I worked on a program in North Home a few years ago where we looked at having leadership energy and cooperative collaborative climate as two of the indicators we wanted to see present before we would work with the community, and that we helped to build civic engagement, and we helped to build that strategic capacity to do some of those things. And they made good progress when we were there in North Home. Then COVID hit, and it was kind of got derailed just a little. But there was that sense of excitement when they looked at the community capitals framework and said, we have a lot of assets here. What can we do? Instead of focusing on the deficits, think about what do we have and how can we grow from there, instead of always wanting what the next county wants or the next, piece of that. Again, I come from that side of the human capacity, leadership, civic engagement side of our work in our department, and I just think paying attention to the people and the connections is using that to leverage the other is most important. But anyway, I'll stop there.
Anyone? Well, some of the stuff that we like to see, we recently had a demographer insight here last week, kind of seeing what the trends of our community are, of Koochiching County are mostly, and specifically, it takes people and initiative, and that's the highest, capital that you have, and that's what we're lacking. So it's everything that you do is difficult. So hence the idea of a couple of major issues that we have, or that we can team up on with other communities, other people in the community. I think that's how anything's ever gonna get done. So I think going at it alone is not gonna work anymore. It's just what I see, and I think you try to take it on all yourself, and I don't think you have very much success. So I think we're gonna have to work together on this one. So.
And what you won't see on the website is the list of the names of people who had an interest in those topics, but you have a copy of that. And
Yep.
Dale, you would have gotten a copy of that as well. Doug has that, as others. Yep. It's just to try to build on that energy and encourage people. When I've visited and worked with other communities, if they have someone who's a dedicated go-getter, even if they're compensated a bit, not just a volunteer time, to be that connector, that coordinator of things, the encourager of people, the nudger. You need nudgers. And you need people to do things too. What we don't need is more leaders. We need nudgers, we need people who can organize things, we need people who can do the basics. And figuring out and dedicating someone to be that nudger who does it in a way that is encouraging. I've seen things happen in communities where that really moves it in a way. So, and Carrie has the website up there too, so you can see what that looks like. There's tabs across the top. If Carrie move her cursor, so each round, all of the data from each round is there. She's moving through that. And round 4 has all of those charts. And there's drop downs for each of those. From each of the ratings, there's the drop downs, there's the charts, things you can go back. You can share that with other people. And the summaries up there. And that'll be up there at this point indefinitely until for some reason we need to shift platforms or something. But it's also print PDF right from there as well. I don't know if Doug, were you going to add anything else that I didn't share?
No, thank you for that, and it was great to have you helping in this. I think the next steps, which I assume you guys are interested in, one thing we want to do is make sure that the governmental entities in the county are up to date and know this is happening. So we're going to make an effort over this summer to have a similar report to this to each of the city councils around. We have, as Jody was mentioning, there are people who have sort of raised their hand in some of these areas as having an interest. I think we have a goal to identify 3, 4, 5 kind of initiatives and create small teams around those to keep things moving forward. And then finally, the thing we've talked about that I think is going to be important to do is in the fall, as Heather says, between fishing and deer hunting, we think it's important to have some kind of a community informational, whether it's a forum or a meeting or a presentation or something that brings the work that's happened to date together and has in it some relatively tangible recommendations for the county. And I would like to just, I say it every time, but I think it's very important. We are very focused on this being a county project and not a city project. That's partly, mostly because you all have been our supporters and our sponsors and we're funding. But also, we think having the county get involved is where we can do something new and different instead of always, because you know, we have a skew in population to one city, and that tends to get in the way of some things. So anyhow, it's not going to stop now. We're sort of in a transition point from learning and talking to taking that learning and converting it into some tangible recommendations. My own feeling is if we can get just one project identified and done that is meaningful, that will be success. If we can get a couple more, fantastic. But I think we get in the way of ourselves if we try to take all 5 focus areas and have a project in each one. We just don't have the resource to do that, I think. Next time around, we might. Any questions? And we'll keep you as a group, and we have Adam and Dale on our CEC committee, so they keep an eye on us, which is good. Not necessary, but
I'd just like to add that I really appreciate Jody, and I've known her involvement for a number of years, and other members of the committee is really strong, community-minded. What they're saying is not something they're guessing at. It's what they've seen over the course of their careers. And for my own part, I really see a connection to what we've seen from the demographer, that your strongest communities, by many measures, come from homegrown, not imported businesses and things like that. So, and that's exactly what Jody was saying there. So I really appreciate the work that you do in the whole committee there. So it's I wish we could snap our fingers and get it done, but it's not that easy.
I know, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And it takes energy. You know, I've had people ask me, why do you do all this volunteer work when you have a job that takes you everywhere around the state and doing things? And I'm like, because volunteerism and supporting and encouraging people, if I don't do it, then I'm talking out one side of my mouth and it's not real. It has to be lived. And you learn so many things from those experiences to be able to help you. But if you can think about doing things for the people, not always thinking about, oh, we need to attract people from the outside, we need to this. That may come, but if you do things that the people need here, that entices other people to say, what's going on there? Something's happening, maybe we wanna live there and be there and do that. Every community's got their groups. Where I live, there's a Strong Women of Today organization with some pretty amazing women doing stuff, and they're movers and shakers. So figure out where those groups are that have that energy, that synergy, and encourage them. Encourage. Yeah.
Final thing I would say is if any of you guys at all have questions, call me or email me. No, I mean, we really need to be part of your efforts and have you know what we're up to. So don't hesitate to reach out and touch us. We don't have to do it on a quarterly basis.
One question I had is, does it make sense for a next step to get in the weeds more with the county board on those 5 initiatives and have a discussion maybe at a committee of the whole if the board wishes to really, we can read the report, but if we fully understand and can have some synergy with what the extension is thinking, we maybe have some actionable items that the board can support moving forward towards the fall presentation or...
You mean work together? I think that's a great idea. I think one of the things that we need to do is get that input and sense on the governmental entities. My own opinion is that was one of the weaknesses of the voyage forward, that it didn't work together with the political side of culture. So I think that's a great idea. I think we have a couple of steps to do before we're ready to do that. We need to organize those focus areas. We need to spend a little time. I was telling Derek, I learned a long time ago to ask the question, do we think this or do we know this? And we need to Dale's point, kind of get down to what we have a strong sense that this is real and it's doable and bring people into that conversation. We don't want to waste your time stuff. But I think that's a very good point, and I think it should happen before we do any kind of broader public meeting, because we need to have our act together when we stand up in front of our communities, whoever it is. Hopefully it's you guys, not me. But no, it's important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, if the board wishes to pursue that type of option, we'd wait for you to let us know when you're ready and have more of a deeper discussion on those areas that we're identifying.
Yeah, we don't, and we do not want to be surprising anybody in this process. I think that's why we need involvement. So, good idea. Carrie, anything you want to add as our regional?
I'm glad we got to that question, Adam, and to that point, because that's what I was going to bring up is, this, I think, provides a lot of data and community input, as I kind of open it up with, and I think it's a real opportunity. So yeah, thanks, Adam, for suggesting that. And if any of the commissioners or the board would like to see specifically something happen, Jody had included, I think Jody in the packet we sent included the suggestions or next steps as some ideas. But if any one of those would you would like to take action on, or you'd like to see us to do a deep dive on this with you, just let us know. We did include in our budget this year some monies to do some next steps like that. So we are positioned to do some of that if the board would like. So I don't know if it comes from the board or Doug when you and the solutions committee is ready. But either way, I don't want to stall in any of that because yes, this is, I think, really important to continue the work with this really great generated feedback from your constituents.
So, thank you. Thanks for the support today. The journey continues.
And I will say it's been great being connected. And so in the future, I have no idea what that would look like, but Carrie kind of knows my MO. Some of the things that I end up focusing on, if it gets looped back in or not. But for now, I'll be stepping aside and just kind of watching from next door to see what's happening.
Well, thank you
Be
for
good.
your efforts. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're sitting at the stoplight now.
What's that?
The stoplight works both ways.
I know, I'm gonna have to wait going home too.
You would think that once in my life I'd hit it on the screen, but I haven't yet.
And it's way longer than you think it's gonna be, and I'm like, oh, shoot. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Great. Next up is Land and Forest.
Good morning.
Heidi. first item is consider approval of board chair signature to letter of thanks to Northern Waters Land Trust.
Yeah, so this is a project, in fact, the last board meeting, the DNR was here regarding this kind of overall project, and they're part in acquisition of some of those former potlatch lands in the county. So you remember this project started 3-4 years ago when Potlatch sold all their lands, remaining lands in Minnesota. The conservation fund kind of bought those lands in hopes that they would eventually end up with different governmental entities, whether it be tribal, county, or state, and then they'd be protected into the future. So Northern Waters Land Trust, which is kind of based out of the Walker area, and they kind of represent those Mississippi headwaters counties like Cass and Crow Wing and Beltrami County. They kind of stood up and said, we'll represent the counties through this process as far as doing the application and any of the, most of the legwork as far as trying to secure Lessard-Sam's funding for this. So we are, you know, Cooch County is obviously outside of their normal service area, if you will, but they were gracious enough to kind of include Cooch County in that project. So I think it'd be a good idea to send those folks a letter of thanks. So just so you guys know, again, we acquired 560 acres in Cooch County through the help of the Northern Waters Land Trust, and that land is now in the county's, it's county fee title land. We have it in our possession now, so.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, and I would second that. Thank you to Northern Waters and definitely approve this letter here. I know it took a lot of work and to get gifted that, to be able to have it back into the county's possession is, you know, we're still going to be able to, from what I understand, do some forestry on it. There's a few exceptions that are limiting what you can do. Some of the motorized stuff for trails and things are off limits, but the public use, you know, hiking, things like that, I'm sure would still be just fine, along with the harvesting of timber and the wetlands and stuff like that. So certainly is a good deal for us, and I don't probably a year and a half or 2 years of work to line all this stuff up and get it to this spot right here. So certainly appreciate it. And so up for consideration is to consider the board chair signature on the attached draft to the Northern Waters Land Trust for their assistance in the county's acquisition of 560 acres of land from the Conservation Fund as part of the Minnesota Forest Heritage Project. And the chair would accept a motion to approve that letter. Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you.
And next is consider authorizing a tax forfeited parcel cleanup.
Yep, so we have a property here in town that forfeited, it's lots 3 and 4, block 4, plat of Carson Lupie's first edition to International Falls. Forfeited a number of years ago, and that property, it was kind of hung up in that whole settlement thing, and now we want to move forward with cleaning that specific property up. There's a porch on it that's kind of fallen on the neighbor's fence and onto their property, and it's full of stuff inside, and the former owner has indicated that they're done with it, so we'd like to move forward with cleaning that up.
All right, the wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any discussion?
How does that work for bidding it out and paying for it?
Yeah, it'll come through the tax forfeited trust, bid it out, the demo.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Yep, and I don't know if you guys have given them an update on the tax bill and all that. I can save that for the round table too, if you're gonna touch on that.
Yeah, we can wait till then.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Have a good day.
Next up is environmental services, Matt. First item is notice of Board of Adjustment member resignation and authorized to fill vacancy.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I like the table. It's much more room for our big committees. Sometimes that's kind of nice when we're trying to squeeze them in on the small table. So yeah, the first item is the notice of the Board of Adjustment member. Desiree Arnold has provided a written notice of her intent to step down from serving on the County Board of Adjustment. Desiree has served on the commission since her appointment in 2023, and we're sorry to see her go, but we must move forward to fill that member on the board. We have 5 total on the Board of Adjustment, and with her resigned now we have 4, and so it's not a very big board, so it's nice to get that filled as soon as possible. So I'm looking for the board action to accept the resignation and seek authorization to advertise to fill the vacancy.
Wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre. Thank you, Commissioner Hell. And thanks to Ms. Arnold. She's got priorities. Thank you to Ms. Arnold.
Yes.
She's got priorities, it looks like, that are
Yes.
obviously more important, so appreciate her service. And
Yeah.
if she gets the chance, she can,
Yeah.
reapply and do that again. too.
Yeah,
So,
well, and anybody that serves on these boards, they learn a lot, number one. I mean, there's a lot involved, and sometimes, I mean, you guys know, just serving as a county board members, you learn a lot as you go through that process, right? And so they do the same thing as they go through that process of serving on our Board of Adjustment or planning and zoning boards. And it's really great that we have community involvement because they learn a lot, they have a lot of input and value that they provide the county board when they listen to different applications and provide either recommendations or decisions on various applications that they see. So it's a great thing. So, we're hoping that we'll get some good options, and I'll present that to the board, after the advertising period.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is a pay app.
Yep, so this is on the Rainy Lake RV sanitary sewer project. Wagner Construction, is progressing on the project very well. Majority of the work has been completed. We're waiting for Minnesota Power installation and some restoration and turf establishment at the site. But they're up and running on the south part, and they still, we're still waiting for that power on the north side before we operate. But that line is running right now. So the total amount due, less than 5% retainage to Wagner Construction for work items completed on the project through May 27th, 2025, is $203,986.85, with retainage in the amount of $12,630.60. The pay application includes installation of both duplex grinder stations, meter manhole, and all lines. And I'd recommend approval of the pay application. They did a great job. They got in there before the major, tourist season came in, and I know the owners of that property are very excited about it and pleased that the way the progress went. So. But there are still a few items to clean up, and I expect end of the summer would be when we get to the final. We'll see.
Great, wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion. I'd second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Any discussion? I'll say good then. The homeowner satisfied with the work so far, and his approval or their approval is okay and everything?
Yeah, so we had a site meeting with the owners and the contractor on some punch list items related to the south side, and contractor and property owners felt like, you know, those items would be addressed and they seem to be satisfied with it. So everything I've heard from them has been positive.
That's a good deal. It's gonna get that stuff directly into the deal, and not have to have holding tanks, and really gonna make it more accessible year-round as well.
Absolutely, and it's good for the environment, having that connection, a lot less risk when it's involved with transporting sewer versus running down a pipe. And you know, good for all users of the site, good for the owners, and good for the county. So. And again, just to refresh your memory, we had received a $300,000, well, two grants, one for $200,000, one for $100,000, with a 25% match on those grants. So the county committed $75,000, the total project cost, and so we're leveraging those grant dollars and doing this project, which is good for all those things that we talked about. And it's a great investment of, you know, that 25% match is a great deal. And so, you know, it's a win-win-win.
Great. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
And just one more thing, I just add that we had a successful e-waste collection throughout the county. We covered all the rural sites, similar to what we do with household hazardous waste, and just wanted to let you guys know it was very successful. We had a lot of volunteers at the transfer station on Saturday, which was great through KTI, and we were lucky to get you know, leverage the MPCA grant that allowed us to have that material picked up for free by Dynamic, which hauls it to Onalaska, Wisconsin, but no cost to us. We had a whole full semi full of e-waste hauled, so just letting you know about that.
Yes.
And, you know, I don't know if that'll be another opportunity for that in the future, but I know there's legislation related to e-waste that may come into play in the future, so we'll see how that shakes out. But when that opportunity came, I said, Wayne, let's go do it, you know, if we can do it. And I know I had heard Commissioner Everson say, we want to hit those rural areas as well, and you know, I heard that and I want to try to do that. And it was a lot of coordination on Wayne's part. He did a great job of getting that pulled together, and so I'm appreciative of the efforts of my staff and everybody that helped out. So.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next up is public comment. Is anybody in person or online for public comments?
I've done
No one in person? Great, anyone online for public comments? You are now unmuted and able to comment. All right, hearing no public comment, we will move on to committee updates. Anybody have any committee updates? Commissioner Roach.
Our airport is, they're redoing the east-west runway right now. That is in full swing, started Tuesday of last week. It's expecting to be done here, probably phase 1 should be done in about a month and a half, and then phase 2 would be done probably about a month and a half after that, so it should be all wrapped up by fall. Our airport, the roof, we got the okay to fix the roof where it's been leaking since day 1. So they're in full swing. They figured 40 to 45 days to have the roof fixed and done and out of there. So they started that on Tuesday last week also. So everything out there is moving right along pretty good.
Great, Commissioner McIntyre.
Nothing too out of the ordinary.
Our reports. Excellent, Commissioner.
Nothing new for me.
Erickson?
Joint National Resource Board in Bemidji with the Northwest Counties, and a little bit of talk on I'm been fairly impressed. They have a new regional director, you know, in the Northwest part, which we're not part of, but nice young man, thinks good, and They talk the health and they talk different things. I had a chance to chat with the chair of the Marquette Board too. So he's a Marshall County commissioner. So we chatted a little bit afterwards.
Interesting. Commissioner House? Nope. You don't have anything other yourself? I'm just kind of waiting on the legislature to see how that shakes out. Don't know what it is yet. It's all wrapped up into one. So once it gets dissected, we'll get more information out to the public as soon as we can about some of the funding sources that we have as a county here and as a community. So, but that'll take a little time to get that all figured out. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think Nathan had maybe some little bit of an update on the
yeah.
legislative.
Yeah, so I think, the House and the Senate both passed the tax bill. That was kind of the big one for us, where the kind of Hilton CPA was in play. So it passed through both chambers last night, basically. So they're awaiting signature from the governor to be put into law. But basically, the tax bill, there was no cuts to county program aid or PILT, 50% reduction in AIS, like had been proposed. And then the other big one that we were kind of paying attention to was the SFIA payment, and they ended up agreeing on the Senate's proposal, which was a 10% reduction in SFIA payment to enrollees on that program, and that'll start fiscal 27, I think, is when that goes into effect. So, keeping PILT and CPA cuts off the table was, I think, a win, and the SFIA reduction at 10%. I'm sure there's probably going to be some landowners that aren't going to be happy with it, but I think that's, aside from not touching it, which obviously would have been ideal, that was kind of the lesser of three evils, if you will. As you remember, the governor had proposed to cut SFIA by 30%. The House wanted to cap it at no more than what you pay in property tax in a year. So for some larger landowners, that would have been like a 60%, 50 or 60% reduction, and so they settled on 10%. So.
Did you say AIS didn't get touched?
No, it's 50%.
50%.
Yeah, just like what had been in play kind of through the session there. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Too soon? Or do you have
Too
anything?
soon, I don't have anything. But I know the big cost shifts, the wonderful. Push them off for a couple of years, and that's probably the same there for about 20 years.
Potentially. All right. Any other updates? Right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
There's a couple informational items in your packet. One is every year I get a letter from the state of Vermont, just so happened to come the same week we had the presentation, so I thought it was decent timing, but I had last year's to compare it to, and I scribbled on the page there just to show that this is based on their estimates, and I think she walked through in her presentation kind of how they do their estimates, but from the report came in 25, but it's for 24. Their estimates said that Koochiching County as a whole grew by 4 households, but declined by a population of 154 when I compare the 2 years. So really the decline is on our average household size. It went from 2.101 to 2.072, which is about a 1.4% decrease per household on average, but largely mirrors the presentation that she gave, and probably what we've been experiencing for the last decade or more in the community. So there are opportunities for local areas of government to challenge this. Of course, you have to provide data. And so I don't know that I have anything, but I want to make that aware to people that if there is data out there that would tell a different story, that we have an opportunity to submit that.
Thank you for updating that.
And the other letter in there, that's addressed to former Commissioner Pavlik. I know we've been talking about FEMA and the state's floodplains. So I had to talk to Matt about this a little bit, but he just explained that they're using a different way of measuring. They're doing a study and there's just a little sliver in Koochiching County, most of it's in St. Louis. Which watershed is it?
It's the rainy headwaters.
Rainy headwaters. So they're using this two-dimensional rain on mesh modeling method. And I know that's separate from this letter. I know Matt's got a presentation upcoming from the state on the Rainy River, that they did made some changes to the floodplains on Rainy River, and they want to present on that here in the near future, right? You come on.
So this item that Adam's sharing is, they just had notified us that they're planning this study area, okay? And I talked to them about the study. The first question I had was, can we expand it? Because I want to hit some other areas like the rivers that we've talked about that we were concerned about. And the answer to that was no, can't expand it. This is a new method of determining, producing the information required for developing floodplain mapping. So they don't know the final product and how that's going to work out, but this is using the newest technology they can to determine these new maps. So is it, like Adam said, it's a very small area. It's all on the very eastern part of our county and mostly doesn't affect any residents. It's public land, the area that is being studied in this study. But like Adam said, we had a better data study on the Rainy River by the DNR, and they've completed that data. At the next meeting, I'll be presenting that basic information. And then just requesting the board to concur with the findings. Basic information on that is that there was from 0 to a couple feet of difference where they identified areas where their base flood elevation could be lower on the Rainy River. And we talked about, like on the Little Fork and Big Fork, what kind of impacts could we have in studying those areas. And again, we're hopeful that we can get some relief by getting those floodplain mapping tighter than what we believe it is right now. So anyways, that's they're looking at different areas, and of course the DNR has heard us about our concerns and is hopeful. I'm hopeful that they'll expand beyond just the Rainy River and hit some of those other areas. So, but it's all dependent on funding for them. They had some money left over on this Rain River study that they hope to use to study, say, the Little Fork segments. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Yep. On the AIS funding, the state's cut 50% is only on county aid. I had been on a meeting with some of the state folks and asked them if they got any cuts. No cuts on the state side.
Of course not.
Okay.
Good to know. Thank you. Any other updates or information? All right, hearing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Support. Thank you, Commissioner Roche. Thank you, Commissioner Hill. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.